This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Hey Detroit sports fans, welcome to the Fan Report, a show made by fans, for fans, powered by the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. I'm Nick, and my co-host Andrew here will be introducing today's talking points.
What's up, guys? On this week's episode, we're going to discuss the dilemma of Andre Drummond before delving into those Marc Gasol trade rumors. But first, we're going to break down the mixed results of the Pistons' two recent matchups against the Pelicans and the Mavericks.
So, obviously, we have quite a bit to talk about today that we're going to kind of get into. I wanted to kind of get your opinion in on which one you wanted to start with. If you wanted to start with the games, or if you wanted to start with...
Well, yeah, I said, but first...
Okay, fair enough. You did. All right, fair enough. So yeah, let's go ahead and just kind of get rolling on that. If you want to kind of take the lead here, go right ahead.
Let's start with the first game. This was on Wednesday. The Pistons took on the Pelicans in New Orleans, got the dub 98-94. Drew Holiday paced all players with 29 points and 7 assists on 14 of 24 shooting, so he had a nice night.
Now, we didn't have AD or AD in this game.
Yeah, neither AD played in this game.
So no Drummond and no Anthony Davis.
I think the big story from this game, and it directly resulted from no Anthony Davis, is this game was in the middle of a Jahlil Okafor resurgence. He put up 17 points, 10 boards, 6 blocks on 8 of 13
I believe,
shooting.
actually, in Anthony Davis's absence, he's averaging 19 and 11, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, 19.7 points per game, 10.8 boards, and 2.8 blocks.
Yeah.
Got the exact stats.
There you go. Andrew did his homework today.
But and then also on the Pelicans and the Julius Randle also had a 13-13 double-double. But Pistons came out with the victory largely due to Blake Griffin. He carried the team. What's
largely?
new?
How about completely and totally?
Well, Reggie pitched in a little bit in the fourth, but Reggie finished with 17 points. 7 of those came in the fourth.
Actually, on pretty decent shooting as well. He had actually a pretty solid game. This is one of his better games that I can recall.
7 of those 17 came in the second half of the fourth, which includes 2 threes also. Yes. But yeah, Griffin had 37 points, 9 boards, 7 assists on 14-28 shooting. Complete dwarfs what Ray Jackson did, obviously. But and then, as you said, it's Andre Drummond's third straight missed game.
Yes, due to the concussion protocol where he got nailed in the face by, was that James Johnson?
Yes.
Yeah.
I want to skip right to the end of this one though, because
there's really not much to talk about.
The part of this game that made headlines was the post game.
Yeah, there wasn't really much to talk about in the game. I mean, just a few points before we get into the post game. I mean, Griffin, outside of scoring, had a solid game as well. He had 9 boards, 7 assists. Reggie Bullock though just struggled mightily. I believe he was 1 of 11 from the field, is what I have here. But he just had an absolutely terrible game. He did have a really clutch bucket late, though, on a steal on a fast break. I think that was his lone bucket of the night. But John Lure actually showed some promise in this game. He only played 15 minutes, but he had 11 points and 6 rebounds in those 15 minutes. Dwayne Casey was very happy with him. Excuse me. He ran the floor a lot. He was all over the glass, and he was very active and vocal on defense as well. So John Lure actually had a good showing in this one. But obviously, the game itself wasn't the story of the night. Yeah, as you mentioned, it was definitely the post-game interview with Blake Griffin.
If you want to look at the story of this game, you need look no further than Blake Griffin's comments, where in the postgame interview, he talked about the lack of focus that seemed to be a recurring issue with the Pistons on over the past, I don't know how many games now.
He really emphasized the second half and the end of the games as well.
Exactly. And then, Reggie stupidly came in, horrible timing.
Yeah, he came in and just decided to stand right in front of the camera with a little pose. And you could tell that Blake Griffin did not find it funny.
But that exact issue is exactly what nearly cost them this game. The Pistons had a 95-87 lead with about a minute and a half to play.
Oh, absolutely.
Sloppy played on this stretch. They allowed that lead to be whittled down to 3 points. With about 20 seconds to go.
Blake Griffin, after a win, normally people would say, "Oh, they got the win; they're going to be happy about it." Well, no, Blake Griffin showing the true competitive nature of his being was clearly very frustrated with the way that the Pistons performed late in that game, and clearly frustrated with the lack of focus and lack of intensity and determination at the end of games, and they almost squandered away another one that they could have that they had. And he was clearly frustrated with that, and you could tell in the post-game interview that he was just not happy. He does not seem happy right now with his teammates, with himself, with the coaching, anything. And sure enough, lo and behold, Reggie Jackson comes out of nowhere and shows that exact lack of focus. It was probably the worst timing I have ever seen for someone to pull a joke on a teammate during an interview. The absolute worst timing.
Like a discipline is what I'd call it.
Yeah, it really is, because he came in, joking around, all, lollygagging, happy-go-lucky after a win, which I get that, sure, fine. But it does trouble me a little bit that he's not seeing the same issues that Blake is seeing. He's not seing the lack of focus. Because
none of these guys are used to winning culture except for Blake. Even then, I wouldn't quite call the club, but at least they were making the playoffs.
They were making the playoffs as an upper seed consistently.
I wouldn't call the couple years that Reggie had in OKC being really exposed to winning culture.
Absolutely not. Granted, they did go to the finals once. But either way, he was still a young player. He was, didn't have that big of a role on that team. He famously said that he was better than Russell Westbrook and deserved the starting job. Yeah. Yep. But it was kind of all over Twitter. Is there anything to make of this? Is this a bad look? And absolutely, I think it's a bad look, because you have one teammate here that is very vocal about an issue he has with the way his teammates have been performing, including himself. Very, vocal and upfront about the lack of focus and determination and discipline late in games. And then you have a teammate of his come in and display that exact lack of focus right in the middle of that interview, and you could tell he was not happy. You could tell that he had a little bit of a scowl on his face as Reggie was walking away, and it wasn't a good look. Was it purely just poor timing? Yeah, I'll chalk it up to that. I don't think Reggie had any idea what the nature of the conversation going on was.
For all you knew, Blake Griffin was fooling around in the post game too. He didn't know, but
what I'm seeing here
it's a bad look with the timing.
What I'm seeing here is two guys that are supposed to be a leader on the floor for this basketball team that are on completely different pages on the state of the organization right now. On two completely different pages, and even chapters. Yeah. Two completely different chapters of what they think of how their team is performing right now. And that is what's most concerning to me. It isn't Reggie, playing a joke. I get that. It happens all the time in post-game interviews. It's the fact that these two teammates who spend all this time together just have two completely different mindsets about how the way this basketball team is going right now. And that's what's bothering me the most. And that's what I would say is the worst look about this. It's a bad look.
And I wonder, are they... Because obviously we're not behind the scenes, but I wonder if in the locker room they're communicating, like if Blake's telling the team like, hey, like this is an issue that needs to be resolved, or if there's not much communication, which is why they have two different viewpoints on what's going on with the team.
Well, I would hope that if he's willing to vocalize this to the media, that he would vocalize it to his teammates first. I would hope that he's in the huddles during timeouts. Right. I would hope he's in the huddles during timeouts. That, hey guys, we gotta focus. Yeah. We're letting this one slip away again. In the locker room at halftime. Hey, guys, we struggle in third and fourth quarters. We struggle late in games. We always get out to a quick start. We need to keep up the intensity and keep up the focus. Yeah. And I would certainly hope so, and I would think that he's using the media as kind of a wake-up call to his teammates that, things aren't so honky-dory here in Detroit. This Pistons locker room is kind of in shambles right now, and the lack of focus is a big reason.
He's taking a leadership role on the court.
Yes,
sure.
And the deaf ears aspect kind of rings true here because I've never heard Blake Griffin to go to the media first with his, disgruntled,
usually very reserved
viewpoints.
Then again, he's had his outbursts, but he's usually
but not really about his own locker room and the way that the team's performing on the floor. He usually talks to his teammates first about that. He's more reserved than most players are. So this is a little bit concerning that I can only assume that Blake Griffin is vocalizing this to his teammates. I can only assume that Dwayne Casey is vocalizing this to, his players. And it's clearly just falling on deaf ears, like you said, and nothing is being done about it because Reggie Jackson is clearly not remaining focused as games progress. He clearly doesn't have the same mindset about the poor performance late in games. He clearly doesn't have that same level of intensity, and he just thinks, hey, we won the game, who cares? There's nothing to improve on, we won. That's what I see out of that. Yeah. That Reggie Jackson thinks that a win is just a win and that's all. That he thinks a win, great, nothing to improve on. He just, says, all right, my job is done. I can move on now. And Blake Griffin, clearly with the winning mentality, knows that my team made a lot of mistakes. I made a lot of mistakes. We need to get our focus in and really kind of lock in on what we need to do better on the basketball floor over the next week. And I don't see the two on the same page in that regard.
You bring up very, very good points, and it basically tells the story of this next game too. Not the entire story.
Well,
but
before we get into that, there was a little bit more about the Blake Griffin thing. Obviously, a few days later, Blake was asked if there was any beef between him.
And he said
and Reggie. He said no, which I would expect him to. I absolutely would expect him to. Do you think there's any kind of bad blood between them? Do you think Blake said anything to Reggie at all? Do you think that there was a conversation had?
I'm sure there was probably a conversation, but I don't think there was any bad blood. I mean, I think it was poor timing and that first and foremost, but I think as far as the different mindsets post game, I would at least hope that's when that was sorted out between the two guys.
Oh, I completely agree. I really don't think there's any bad blood between the two. I think Reggie kind of feels. I think Reggie kind of would, if he cared, if he cares, I should say. I don't know if he cares or not, but if he does, and I would sure hope he does, that he would see that post game interview and kind of see the writing on the wall in that respect. That man, I messed up. That was poor timing on my part. I need to be more focused and get locked in, to be with my teammate Blake, who's clearly outperforming everybody else on this basketball team. Yeah. So I need to get in that mindset with him. So maybe there was something said without actually being said, and Reggie was able to just look at the video and say, damn. So we can go ahead and move on to the next game here. I mean, there really wasn't any notable numbers here. But Julia came in, 8 points, 10 boards, 1 block. I mean...
are you talking about the Mavs game?
No, the Pistons.
Oh, but it says a lot of notable numbers.
Well, there's a lot of notable numbers in the Mavs game for sure.
Yeah, no, but for the Pistons, it was just it was Griffin all the way, and then Reggie chipped in late. But for the Pistons, Mavs, they played on Friday, lost 101-106 in Dallas. Notable stat lines from this game: Luka Doncic put up 32 points, 8 boards, 8 assists, and 19 shooting. He became only the third teenager to log that 32, 8, and 8 line in the last 35 years.
Joining LeBron and KD.
Yep, LeBron and KD.
Actually, according to the stat I saw, was NBA history.
I saw the last 35 years.
I don't know.
Which, to me, is modern NBA history. Like, 1984 to me is like where the modern NBA starts anyway.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that.
And then you also had Dennis Smith Jr. put 19 points, 5 assists, and 14 shooting, so a pretty efficient game for him. DeAndre Jordan had a 13-11 double-double, but he did get out-rebounded by Drummond on the other side.
The Mavs as a team actually shot 14 of 36 from 3, approximately 39%.
They shot better from 3 than they did from the free throw line.
Yes, they did. The free throw line was absolutely abysmal for them. That is where the lid went on the basket, so to speak.
But on the Pistons side of the ball, Blake Griffin, 35 points, 7 boards on 50% shooting. He also had 6 turnovers this game, though.
Yes.
Drummond, his first game back, 23 points, 15 boards, 3 steals on 9 of 16 shooting.
So not great shooting, especially for his, someone who shoots that close to the basket.
At least above 50% this time.
55% is not high enough for someone who shoots that close to the basket.
When we're looking at like 40% numbers for Drummond,
I know.
at least
it's an
above
improvement.
50.
It needs to be better, though.
And then Jackson, a little more uncharacteristic game from, he wasn't efficient shooting-wise, but putting up 9 assists. Which you haven't really seen him put up that many assists in a while.
I actually think that was a season high for him. If I recall, I actually do think it was a season high. I thought I had read that somewhere. I could be wrong, but I thought I had read that somewhere that is a season high for him.
I think the big story for the Pistons this game, though, was the bench. The bench played horribly. They were a combined 4-21 from the field, 2 of 13 from 3. That was highlighted by an 0 for 6 stat line from Stanley Johnson. He was also minus 20 plus minus. Actually, no one in the bench had a positive plus minus.
No, nobody on the bench. And I believe Bruce Brown was the only starter with a -1 as well. All the other starters had positive figures in that respect.
The only good thing I can say was that Stanley Johnson had some good stretches of defensive play against Doncic, but then again, it was just in stretches. It wasn't consistent.
Yes, and it was purely defensive play. It was not. There was no. I mean, he put in 2 free throws. The second quarter was where the bench really kind of showed its weakness. To start the second quarter, they gave up a 28-13 run.
Yeah.
So they got outscored by
really great,
and that was where Luka Doncic really just kind of took off as well. He really made that game his in the early second quarter there. But the Pistons did get out to a quick start in the game. Ball movement was a very key factor. Drummond was a part of that as well. They were making crisp passes, getting open shots. Bruce Brown had 5 points early as well. They looked good to start the game, and then the second quarter, the bench unit came in to start the second quarter, and it just was not pretty from there on out. I actually have an interesting stat line here.
Took a 62-54 deficit to the.
Yes, I have an interesting stat line here to kind of show you the disparity between the bench unit and the Pistons, in the starting lineup, and the starting lineup had an offensive rating of 133.3 in their 16 total minutes together in this game. The lineup with Stanley Johnson in instead of Bruce Brown had an offensive rating of 76.5 in the 9 minutes that they played together. And the defensive rating with Bruce Brown in there, as well as the defensive rating with Stanley in there, was 100. So both of them were 100. So was it really worth to play Stanley when, according to the defensive rating stats, he didn't really provide that much defensively as a whole unit, playing with the unit. And offensively, I mean, the numbers are obvious there.
It's saying he didn't provide much defensively over Bruce Brown.
Yes, over the starting lineup. Yeah. Yes, over the guy who starts ahead of him. So was it really worth it? I understand the mindset of putting Stanley Johnson in there. He is one of their more able and experienced perimeter defenders. Luka Doncic is a tricky player, as they called him. He's a guy who loves to go between the legs, behind the back, step backs, really catch you off guard and make you, cross your feet and get you off a step. And he's able to get some separation, take a shot. Stanley Johnson had a nice quote at the end of that one about how Stan Van Gundy actually taught him to play defense on players like that. You will never bite on a pump fake when you are really close to him. Well, you will bite on a pump fake when you're trying to regain space as he's going up for a shot, which makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And now I'm paraphrasing. It's not the exact quote,
no, it's very true, though.
It's roughly what he said, and it is very true. Because when you're close to a defender and playing pressure defense, you're most likely not going to bite on a pump fake because you're able to go up with him. And if he doesn't go up, you're not going to go up. But if there's space in between you two, you're going to try to close the gap. So if you're playing close to him, so Stanley Johnson using that mindset to cover Luka Doncic, he actually forced him into 3 and 9 shooting in the fourth quarter because he got a lot of minutes late. So he did slow down Luka late, but Doncic still had his way for much of the game. I do want
to talk about the fourth quarter for a little bit because it was a very interesting fourth quarter. They did manage to crawl back and tie it up a couple times in the fourth quarter. They were actually down by 3 with about 2.5, 3 minutes to go, and Drummond got a bucket rescinded or overturned.
Yeah, well,
from a couple minutes earlier because of a shot clock violation. Yes, which I'll be honest, I've never seen it happen that far after.
It's the first time out, so I've seen it happen that far after, but it is the first time out.
It's not usual.
Everybody's aware of it. I was actually listening to that moment on the radio at the time while I was on my way somewhere. I don't remember. Yeah, but I was listening to it on the radio, and I had heard, and they kept repeating that this game is not actually tied. They're actually down by 2, or they're not up by 1. They're actually down by 1 because that clearly was a shot clock violation. It just has to be overturned at the first time out. Yeah. So, which I actually wish they would change up and
have an official timeout.
Well, at the first whistle, call an official timeout so that they can do a review then. Granted, it did take a minute for the first whistle, but it still took even longer for the first time out. So.
But once that league got extended to 5, that was the closest the Pistons would get for the last 2.5 minutes, and a lot of that was due to focus by the Mavs down the stretch. They really buckled down the defensive end, which is something the Pistons have never been able to do down the stretch. They included a fantastic block by Max Kleber on a Drummond dunk attempt. There was also one point where we had the ball with about. I think it was 20 seconds to go. We were still down by 5, but it took us a whole 15 seconds to get a shot off, which should never happen. You need to get a shot off
when you're down by 5, when you're down by 2 possessions, and you have 20 seconds left with the ball. You need to get a shot off,
exactly.
Within 5 seconds.
And then in general, we went 2 for 5 in the final 2.5 minutes, and that kind of sealed the deal.
Yeah,
that's called focus down the stretch.
Yes, and that is something that the Pistons do not have right now, as very openly vocalized by Blake Griffin in the prior game. So
if it was a Pistons on the opposite end of this, I'd fully I don't know if they would have pulled out with a 5-point lead.
No, if they had a 5-point lead and performed the way that they did at the end of that game, no, I don't. I think the Mavericks could have come back.
I'm just saying they wouldn't have been able to do it. I haven't seen the Pistons do what the Mavericks did at the end of this game all this season.
No, absolutely not. The Mavericks really locked down big time. Put the clamps on, so to speak. So. And the Pistons just couldn't do anything about it. The fact that it took them 15 seconds to get a shot off with 20 seconds left, that's just a brain lapse. You need to get a shot off. That should be priority number one. You are down 2 possessions.
Yeah, you're not out of the
game
yet.
You have to foul on the inbounds regardless. You need as much time as possible, and they blew it. Yeah. So that's something that Dwayne Casey's got to coach up a little bit. That's something that the leaders of that basketball team need to say, look, we screwed this up. We need to fix this. We need to make sure that if we're in this situation, we get a shot off, and we get a shot off within 5 seconds so that we have time to make something happen.
But credit
afterwards.
to the Mavs defense for not allowing us to get a shot.
Oh, absolutely.
Off,
credit to the Mavs defense for sure. The Mavs D really kind of clamped down at the end of the fourth quarter. So
anyway, that was it. They played 2 games this past week, so that was really all we.
What'd they play? 5 last week and 2 this week? I mean,
thank God. I mean, playing 5 in 1 week is already a tough proposition. I think they have 3 this coming week.
I
want to say something
I
like
think
that.
they got 3 this coming week. So
so those are Pistons 2 games, some mixed results, both close games, but we'll see what happens the rest of the season. I mean, I haven't seen much change since we started doing this podcast. But.
Freep.com in the opening line of their game report of the recap about the Pelicans game was for the proponents, and I'm paraphrasing again, but for the proponents of the Pistons tanking, this was not a fun one for you. So I mean that they obviously have a pulse on what the fans want in this for this team and what a majority of people probably want. But because I mean, you look at what the Sixers have done, the Celtics did. You look at what the Suns are doing and what a lot of these teams have done over the years with the tank method. And obviously it's working because I mean, granted the Suns aren't done, but the Sixers are, and they've got what they want. They're a top tier contending team. So you got to wonder, and look at the Lakers as well. You got to wonder how long it's going to take. That's all. Yeah. But we can go ahead and move on here. Yeah, we are going to kind of talk about Andre Drummond here.
This is kind of leading into deadline talk next week. I mean, I think a crucial way of how you approach the deadline as a Pistons fan is what your views on big names like Andre Drummond and Blake Griffin are and how you see the future of the team.
Absolutely.
So I think this is a crucial discussion to have before the deadline next week.
Well, primarily because, I mean, the big name connected in all these trade talks. I mean, we talked about Nick Batum. We talked about Dennis Smith Jr. We've talked about, I mean, granted,
we will be talking about
Marc Gasol as well. But I mean, even with Anthony Davis out there, Andre Drummond's been centered around a lot of these. Granted, they don't have a shot at Anthony Davis.
Not a shot at
Let's be real. There is nothing the Pistons can offer.
And even if the Pelicans were cool with it, Anthony Davis does not want to come here.
No,
he wants to go to a contender.
He wants to go to a contender. He wants to go to a big market as well. I mean, the Knicks aren't exactly a contender, and that was the first team that's been brought up. Yeah. So outside of the Lakers, but. Anyways, so Andrew, I guess we'll start this off by saying, with Drummond's recent play, obviously there, again, seems to be a lack of focus on his part, and so it seems he takes plays off, which has kind of been his MO for much of his career. But you do get the elite athleticism. You do have the best rebounder in basketball. You do have a guy who can put up 15 to 20 points in any given night, if not more. He's not a guy who can stretch the floor, but so he's a very old school center for today's NBA.
They're trying to make him be a guy that stretches the floor.
I don't know if that's I think they've realized it doesn't work well.
Yeah,
he just cannot shoot. But either way,
it feels like he tries it out like every other game now, or once every 3 games.
He'll take like 1 or 2 threes and miss them, and then
every couple of games.
Yeah. But I guess, what are your feelings towards Andre Drummond right now? Are you done with him? Do you still have hope for him? I mean, he is only 24. Is the contract too much to even handle anymore for what he's given you? So kind of what's your standpoint and what's your thought process behind Andre Drummond's future with this team?
The contract is one of my big things. I mean, $25 million a year over the next 3 years is not ideal, especially for the level of production you're getting out of him. You're getting numbers. Obviously, you're getting the points, you're getting the rebounds.
I like to call them empty numbers.
Yeah, I was about to say, but
because they're not coming in wins.
Yeah, you could easily argue they're empty numbers because obviously it's hard to build around it because we've tried, and he's not a guy that you can center your offense around,
right?
Because he's very limited offensively. He needs
the skill set keeps him within 5 feet of the basket.
So, to me, he's not despite. Numbers look flashy. I don't think it's worth the contract because it's not translating to wins. which is kind of what you just pointed out as far as is it worth the wins.
Right. You're not getting those numbers do not equal wins for the Pistons right now, and a lot of that is because of a lack of outside shooting and stretch ability with some of the other talent on the floor. I mean, if you had elite shooters all over the floor, it would be a little bit different because you just have your mop-up guy down low. But the Pistons don't have that. They haven't been able to get that over the umpteen years that they've tried to build around Drummond now. It's not a guy in today's league that is just easy to build around because you have to have elite. You have to make up for his deficits by having elite shooters around, and then you have other deficits as well. You have a defensive liability on the wing or such and such. But so he is a hard player to build around. He's not a five-tool guy. He which is a baseball term, but he's not a guy that has a do-it-all mentality. He's a mop-up guy. He's a guy who gets your putbacks down low. He gets you a bunch of offensive boards and misses or makes the putback, and he does miss a lot of them. He's not. But the thing that bothers me the most about him is the fact is his lack of efficiency down low. If a guy only has a skill set inside 5 feet, only has that's how far he can stretch the floor. You have to be shooting at a very, very high percentage there. Because you have to be an expert down low. You have to be a low post monster, and he's just not. He struggles with the basketball in his hands. He struggles. How long did it take him to get to learn and get good at a low post move? 3-4 years? It took him a long time.
Yeah. And I like to point to Greg Monroe. Because when he was with the Pistons, he was also another guy that was putting up nice numbers. He was averaging 16 and 10 with the Pistons up to his final year with the Pistons, and he was a perennial starter with us. But it was the same thing as Drummond in the fact that his style of play no longer fits with today's NBA. And as soon as we let him walk,
he's done nothing with his career.
He doesn't start anywhere. Teams can't. He's on rosters. But he's been bounced around. He can't find a spot in rotation.
I'm pretty sure there's some nights they don't even dress him.
There are. They struggle to find room for him in a rotation because
the game of basketball's changed to an up-tempo, fast-paced, run the floor, shoot the three. And Drummond and Monroe can't do that. Drummond struggles to run the floor effectively. Yeah. He can't stretch the floor at all. So when you run the floor with Drummond, it's alley-oop or bust, basically, and he can't always get to that spot.
Yeah. 20 years ago, Drummond would have been one of the most coveted players in the NBA.
Absolutely, because of the athleticism and the ability to rebound the ball. And now, one of the other issues I have with him, which, again, I think this is entirely a focus and an effort thing, is his lack thereof in terms of low post defense. Yeah. And especially perimeter defense and some of the bigs that stretch the floor. He struggles to guard guys. They own him. Joel Embiid has his number all day, and he lives inside of Drummond's head. Yeah. And it's because Drummond struggles to, cover a player that can stretch the floor, and he struggles to stay in front of his man down low. A guy with a good low post move beats Drummond more often than not. And that's, one of the things that if you're going to give up, if you're going to have a lack of ability in terms of spacing the floor, you don't have shooting.
Look at Vucevic last week.
If you don't have the ability to space the floor or shoot the basketball outside 5 feet, you need to be elite in other factors, and a lot of those factors have to be efficiency down low as a low post monster and ability to play expert level low post D, and he does not possess any of those. Is he an elite rebounder? Yes, he's probably the best rebounder. Excuse me, I need some water. But he's probably the best low post or the best rebounder in the league. But that is the only thing I can say that he's elite level at. And that's where I have a lot of issues with him, because just a rebounder is not going to win me basketball games anymore. This is 2019, and this is the NBA in 2019, and that does not translate to wins no longer.
And to the Pistons' defense, they've tried. Obviously Drummond's worked on it, in the offseason and stuff, but they've tried as far as in game planning. They've tried to make him a post-up player. They've tried to make him a stretch.
He can't perfect the move.
They've tried to give him trial by fire on the defensive end. How many more things can you try before, at this point, just he is what he is?
The problem is the amount that they've invested into him. It's tough to just cut your loss at that point.
Well, yeah, obviously.
But so I kind of understand that. Give him every opportunity you can to let him develop his game. And they've given him every opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, hell, they tried to make him a 3-point shooter this offseason, and clearly that didn't work. I mean, they tried to have him run, Stan at the end of his tenure tried to have him run, have the plays start through him, run pick and rolls with him, have him start with the ball at the top of the key and move off ball with your shooters. I mean, they've tried it and experimented, and none of it has seemed to work with him.
So a couple questions here. One, do you think Andre Drummond, with his skill set and contract, has any trade value?
Yes. Do I think a lot of the fans and the front office here and the ownership here needs to kind of temper their expectations of what they can get for him? Absolutely. I don't think there's many teams around the league that look at Andre Drummond and say, I need that. Mm-hmm. I need that on my basketball team. I need the elite rebounding. I need a guy who shoots borderline 50% from inside 5 feet.
You're leading me right into my next question. What kind of team do you think, like, you don't have to even name me a specific team, but what kind of structure do you think Andre Drummond would fit best with?
A team that has elite shooting on the outside and also wing players that play effective defense. And that is a 3-and-D, a team that is loaded with 3-and-D players. You could argue the Cavs, with the LeBron Cavs with, J.R. Smith and Kyle Korver. You could argue that team could use an Andre Drummond. Andre Drummond's a better Tristan Thompson. There's no doubt about that.
The Raptors, maybe.
The Raptors like to stretch the floor with the 5 a little bit more.
They do.
Because Jonas is able to stretch the floor. He just doesn't have outside range. But, excuse me. Jeez.
Lord mercy.
But you could argue the Raptors
need
as
some
well.
Water.
I know. But teams that have the elite shooting, the elite 3-and-D type guys, the guys who are able to stretch the floor on the wing, that can move the ball as well, are the teams that can use a guy like Andre Drummond. And there's only a select few of those teams in this league. There really is. I mean, I can't believe I'm saying this, but the Golden State Warriors, granted their style of basketball doesn't work, but if they were to go back to how things were when they had Zaza Pachulia there, Drummond would work. Drummond would absolutely work in that system. But now that they've reinvented it a little bit to where they have 5 players who can go outside.
The offensive load wouldn't be on him, and he could just clean up any misses.
Exactly. He would probably average 6 to 8 points a game purely on putbacks because they don't miss that much. But either way, he'd still be averaging 15-plus boards a game. He'd be the exact guy that they want down there. And it's the team like that has the elite shooting that can use a guy like Drummond. But tell me right now, how many teams out there have truly elite shooting? And I mean, lots of it. One guy is not enough. 2 guys, you can argue, is not even enough. I need 2 plus 3, 4 guys that are able to really, really shoot the basketball to make up for Drummond's lapses on the offensive end of the floor.
I agree. Last question for you. Should the Pistons move Drummond? Do the Pistons move Drummond before his contract's up?
I guess it depends on... Should, yes. I do think they should move Andre Drummond. I think the project's done. He was a very raw talent coming into the league. He was a guy who had a very high upside with a lot of potential, a lot of athleticism, and he just hasn't panned out the rest of his basketball game. So should the Pistons move on? Yes, it's time. He just isn't working here anymore. It's not translating to wins. And frankly, I think it would help push along the rebuild because you would get a pick for him or a young player for him or a couple young players for him that can help push along that rebuild. You would get something. Is it going to be 2, 3 picks? No, it's not. It's at best a lottery protected or top 10 first and a player, something like that in my eyes. And I don't even know if you'd get that right now. So yes, I do think it'll help to push along the rebuild. So they should. Do they? I mean, it's starting to sound more and more like they will by the deadline because of all the the movement, the talks surrounding him. It does sound more and more likely that they will. I'm still hesitant to just push.
Wait,
that
do you
button.
think you're saying this deadline or
yeah?
Oh wow, okay.
It's seeming more and more likely that they will. I'm not quite ready to push that button myself because I know.
I was just asking before the contract's up, but
okay.
Then again, isn't next year his last year on his contract?
I think he's got next year.
Oh, no, he's got 3 years.
Option.
He's got 3 years.
He's got next year and an option, doesn't he? But I'm not quite ready to push that button and say yes, they're going to. But just because I know how this front office works, I know how unlikely they are to move on from talents like that. But I'm ready for them to, and I am encouraged by the talk surrounding him. to potentially move on from him. Granted, they get something nice in return. But
what are you looking for in return for Andre Drummond? Like, what do you expect in return?
I kind of mentioned it. Like I expect a first-round pick. I don't think we're going to really... I think, again, our options are so limited here. And other teams know that I don't know if they'd be willing to give up a first-round pick for him. You're going to get talent. You're going to get a young player or a good player, maybe on a bad contract like a Nick Batum. He's a solid player, but he's got a bad contract.
Or Chandler Parsons. Like
Chandler Parsons we talked about. But I would think that a pick is a reasonable thing to ask for. A lottery protected first or a back end first round pick plus something else. I mean, there is some value there that you could get. Am I delusional? Maybe. I might be dreaming here, but I more likely to think that the Pistons would end up having to take on a bad contract here for a talented player to give.
I think that's what's going to happen is you're going to have to take on a bad contract and then maybe be able to have him sweeten the pot with a pick.
Yes,
I don't think you're getting a meaningful player in return.
No,
but I could see it being for a bloated contract that's expiring sooner than Drummond's.
Yes,
maybe 2 years.
Yes,
2 years left.
Well, one of those guys that is mentioned is Marc Gasol, and this kind of carries us into our next our topic here is. Obviously, that trade is going to surround around Drummond.
This rumor is courtesy of Kevin O'Connor, who
The Ringer, I believe, posted it out there.
He said that the Kings and the Grizzlies have both inquired. The Kings and the Pistons have both inquired about Memphis Grizzlies center Marc Gasol.
I would expect that to surround around Drummond. I would think. Well, I hope to God they don't trade a pick. My God!
Before I get into the details of this, is this something you even want for the Pistons, like Marc Gasol and the Pistons? Is this something that you like, don't like? Is it a fit?
It is a fit because it is kind of the mindset of what the Pistons want to do with their big. He's a guy who can stretch the floor. I believe he's shooting 36% from three or something or 39% from three. I don't know. But he's a guy who can stretch the floor.
He's shooting 36% from 44% from the field.
Yes. So he is a guy who can stretch the floor for the Pistons, so that is a plus there. He is a vet and a vet leader who knows how to play winning basketball. He is 33, and he has, taken some downturns in his, his production sense.
15 points, about 9 boards per game right now. But I value his defense more.
I absolutely value his defense far more as well. And his contract, he does have a big contract, but it expires sooner than Drummond's, and that's that's one of the selling points for me is the contract does expire sooner than Drummond's.
It expires this year. He doesn't pick up his player option, but damn well he's picking up that $25 million player option.
I think he would be stupid not to. At this day and age of his career, yes, he's picking up that player option, but that contract does expire sooner.
But it does give you flexibility quicker than you would have if
Drummond stayed his full term, yes. So, with that being said,
there is one more factor to this.
Yes, you would have to take on a Chandler Parsons type deal.
That's what they're asking. They want to package Chandler Parsons in any trade that involves Marc Gasol. Now, Chandler Parsons is owed $25 million next season and the season following. No player option, no team option. That is just set in stone.
Yes. That's ugly.
And he is doo-doo.
Yes, he's terrible. Chandler Parsons is terrible. And granted, he can't stay healthy. He's just terrible. He's no good.
He was stellar with the Rockets.
Yes,
and then as soon as he left, it's like the player. It's like he got his talent stolen from by the Monstars.
Yes. Chandler
He
Parsons
left his talents in Houston.
Yes, Chandler Parsons coming to this team would not be something we would want.
Yeah.
It would be almost like one step forward, 2 steps back kind of thing. Because granted, it is only a 2-year deal, but we would be stuck for the entirety of that 2-year deal.
Yes, you would be. Which you're probably stuck with that with Marc Gasol too. But
yes, but the thing is, so all that money would be coming off at the same time.
Yeah.
But the thing is,
which means free agency 2020.
Yeah. For me, granted, nobody comes to Detroit. Let's be real. They haven't ever, unless we've vastly outbid someone, we've never been able to bring in a high-priced superstar.
Very true.
Thing is, though, for me to take on the contracts of Marc Gasol.
Oh, yeah, and Reggie's contract goes off the books in 2 years also.
For me to take on the contracts of Marc Gasol and Chandler Parsons, and I'm giving you Drummond, who I would argue still has some value there. Granted, the Pistons aren't doing well at selling that value, it would be tough for me to just take that straight up. Obviously, I would want something else in return, maybe. I mean, it is interesting to think about Marc Gasol in a Pistons uniform and how he would work with Blake Griffin. I do think it's a better fit. But it's almost kind of counterintuitive in my mindset where I want this rebuild to start now, and that would guarantee a rebuild, but it would guarantee a rebuild 2 years from now. And I want it to start now. I don't want to see continued mediocrity for another 2 years.
So there's a Free Press article out there written by Kirkland Crawford, and in the article he proposes a trade that says works financially, but I want to know in your opinion, does either team say yes to this? He's proposing as Pistons trade Drummond, Reggie, and Stanley for Marc Gasol and Chandler Parsons. Does either team bite on that deal?
Why would either team want that? I mean, I can see why the Pistons would want to get rid of their two bad contracts with Reggie Jackson and Andre Drummond, but they'd be taking on Chandler Parsons, which Reggie and Chandler and Parsons contracts come out up at the same time anyways. And
just Parsons you're paying more for.
Yeah, and Gasol, he is a better fit for the team, but again, he's 33 years old. The contract's not pretty, and it is still, you're stuck with him for 2 years. You just lose a year on the Drummond deal, but you're also giving up Stanley, who I guess really has no value at this point. Let's be honest, his value's gone. The best time to trade him would have been last year, maybe.
Yeah.
And that's gone now. So actually, the best time to trade him would have been after his rookie year, probably would be my guess. But so I don't see the Grizzlies wanting this deal. I don't see the Grizzlies wanting to hold on to Reggie Jackson. They've got Mike Conley there. I don't see Reggie doing well in that locker room behind Mike Conley. That's for damn sure. I don't see Drummond really doing well in that locker room. This deal just doesn't really make sense for either team to me. I mean, I don't know. What are your thoughts on it?
I agree. I think I kind of agree with you because it doesn't really help either team that much financially because of
the money comes off the books at the same time. The Grizzlies have the extra year.
That's the tough part about this deal is it's going to be really hard to make this deal and make it financially responsible for the Pistons because you are going to be taking on almost $50 million, almost guaranteed for the next 2 years. So I'm trying to mess around here, and I'm trying to see because the Pistons, in my opinion, here could go full tank mode, right? And we could give them Blake Griffin and Reggie Jackson for Marc Gasol and Chandler Parsons. Now, Memphis is obviously getting the better part of that deal at that point, not quite financially, but player-wise.
You would need to give me a first-round pick for that.
Yeah.
You would absolutely have to give me, for me to give you Blake, you'd have to give me a first-round pick there.
Like I said before we even started this, I said in order to when I said getting rid of Drummond, it would take a bloated contract plus a pick. I think the team would go for Griffin. So I would definitely expect a pick in return here.
I might even expect more than that. Just the way that Blake's been performing lately.
Do you think Memphis would bite on Blake Griffin?
It depends on what their mindset of the future for them holds. If they're looking to rebuild, absolutely not.
Yeah.
If they're looking to get younger, because obviously Gasol and Conley are not getting any younger. If they're looking to get younger on the ball, then no, this would not be a move for them because Blake Griffin is, he's 30 years old now, 29. So he's definitely not in his younger years of his playing days. So especially with the miles he has on his body. So no, if the Grizzlies are looking to rebuild here, they don't want that deal.
Now, would it be more enticing for you if we went back to that Drummond, Jackson, Stanley deal, right? If we just gave him, because if you just gave him Drummond and Jackson, that money still works out, right? Do you think you could coax a pick out of the Grizzlies?
No, I don't.
Just Drummond and Jackson.
No, I don't, because I know that they will get something more in return for Marc Gasol than what we could give them with that deal, without them having to give up a pick. Because Marc Gasol is still a guy that can help a team win, so there is value there. And the fact that he's only got 2 years left on that deal, he is a productive player on the basketball floor, a leader as well. That's not something that they'd be willing to give up a pick for.
Do you have an ideal trade for Marc Gasol?
I don't see a fit here. I don't see a trade that works for both teams. At least not for what I want to get.
Only way I'd want this if I could if I could dump either Blake's or Drummond's contract in this trade. That's the only way I would want to do this trade at all.
But then,
in my opinion.
But then you'd have to take on Chandler Parsons' deal, and
it expires sooner than both Griffin's and Drummond's contract. So
yes, it does. But again, you're still pushing your rebuild on 2 years. So you are still. I would like to see my ideal situation for the Pistons.
I feel like you're speeding up your rebuild because you're at this point you're making your team worse.
I want them to begin a rebuild now. I want them to begin a rebuild this year.
Well,
taking my rebuild from 3 years to 2 years while giving up a talent that I could.
So you want us to trade Drummond or Blake for a deal that contract expires this year?
I want to find a contract that expires maybe after this year or some point. I don't know. There's probably not a deal that works because of the way the contracts are structured now. There's probably not a deal that works for the Pistons with this respect.
Because I think this is speeding up your rebuild. It is
speeding it up from what it would be if you stayed status quo. Which I don't want them to stay status quo. I don't want to see mediocrity for another 3 years. I don't want to see mediocrity for another 2 years. I want to see how quickly I can get this rebuild in. If I can find a way to dump Drummond off to another team who is looking at him through beer goggles and says, look at what we can do with this guy, we'll give you this for it. That's the dream scenario. That's not going to happen. No, I know that. So, yes, it does move the rebuild up a year. Granted, you're not getting rid of the Blake deal, so how much are you really getting in that rebuild there? So you're still having a 32-year-old Blake making almost $40 million a year at that point. How much are you able to rebuild around that? You really can't.
Well, you're cutting $25 million 1 year sooner than you thought you would be.
Yes, but that's getting this, you'd probably be damn near close to the luxury, still damn near close to the luxury tax. You'd be over the salary cap,
you'd
damn
still
near
be
close to
strapped
luxury
for
tax.
this offseason no matter what.
No matter what, yes, with a pick that likely wouldn't be any good. So you're really
Memphis?
Not your pick.
Oh, no, I thought if you got Memphis' pick in this.
You're not getting it. You're not getting their pick. I'll tell you that right now. They will not give you Marc Gasol and a pick to take on Andre Drummond.
You gave him Blake Griffin instead of Dre.
If you gave him Blake Griffin instead of Dre, yes. But again, that's the pipe dream. You're not going to make that
What would you rather do? How about that?
I want Drummond gone so bad.
So you'd rather give him Drummond?
Yes.
Instead of getting a pick?
I don't want to see Andre Drummond on the basketball floor.
Okay, lastly, just in general, do you want to see the Pistons pursue this? Just to close this out. I guess that's what this all culminating to. Weighing all these different options, playing all these different scenarios.
Right.
Just in the end, do you want to see the Pistons pursue this?
Well, let me ask you, before we answer that question, kind of same question for you. Is there a deal that the Grizzlies can make that you like? Do you like this?
Like I said, if it involves dumping Griffin or Drummond, works for me because it speeds up the rebuild. Because I personally don't think there's any deal out there where we can get money off the books for this offseason. That's all. I
don't think there is either. I really don't. Unless we're attaching our own picks to it, which I definitely don't want to do.
Exactly.
Or our young talent. I still don't want to do that. I'm just concerned about the fact that we're still going to be damn near luxury tax line. We're still, because you got to remember, while we're taking 25 mil off the books in 2 years, we're still adding another, 10 mil on Blake's deal in 2 years.
Yeah.
So, it's counterintuitive, plus whatever other free agents we sign this year to just set a roster. I mean, Lure's contract's still there. I mean, we're not in a situation where we're going to have...
Lure's expires in 2 years, too.
But we're not going to be in a situation where we're ready to spend big because we're so far above the salary cap right now. We're damn near luxury. We're literally, $1 million from the luxury tax line right now? Which is far above salary cap.
Outside of Blake Griffin's deal, your most expensive deal after 2 years is Henry Ellenson at $1.8 million.
Yeah, but there's guys that are going to be re-signed. Kennard's going to be picked back up, if not re-signed. You have
Kennard for 3 years right now. You still have Kennard for 3 more years.
Okay, but you're going to end up re-signing some of these players. And if you do trade Andre Drummond, you're bringing in someone to fill his... Gasol's going to fill his role. But you're going to... At that point, you're going to have $75 million to sign half a roster. So you're not looking at bringing in a big-time player at that point. You're looking at bringing in a bunch of mid-level guys with one potentially 20-plus
So you're saying no matter what, Blake Griffin's contract in the postseason?
Yes, no matter what, Blake Griffin's contract in 2 years is going to hinder the Pistons from building a winner, yes.
So wouldn't that be your priority to trade, not Drummond's?
It could be, yes. But again... I don't want to see Drummond on the basketball floor anymore. I'm done with him. I moved on.
Right,
I am ready to move on from Andre Drummond. Blake Griffin, I like to see around because he puts some energy in the arena. With the lack of lack of people there. But
I'm just afraid is he going to last for us throughout?
That is another selling point. I would like to see. I don't want to involve Blake Griffin in this deal. I would like to see Blake Griffin go somewhere else because I feel like we could get more out of it that doesn't involve us taking on that bad of a contract for 2 years. We might be able to get a little bit better of a contract in that respect.
Back to the question at hand. Is this a deal you'd want the Pistons to pursue?
I guess, yeah, if it's the best thing available. If it is the best deal available to me involving Andre Drummond, yes. I want to move on.
So you're saying it's not your favorite, but it's acceptable?
It's acceptable,
That's basically my sentiment, too.
It's not a deal that blows me away. It's not something I can look at and say, yippee. But it's a deal I say, look, I know what we have here in Detroit. I know what Andre Drummond is. I'm ready. I'm ready to just say bye and move on. And this gets me 2 years closer to that contract and another contract coming off the books. And I'm good with that. I'm okay with that. I'm not good with that. I'm okay with that. So if there's another deal out there that I can get for Drummond, yes, I would love that.
Now, what if Arnie Kander can work his Kander magic and rehabilitate Chandler Parsons?
Not going to happen. Because we clearly have had issues with conditioning for how long now? Well, granted, Arnie Kander is better. He has revitalized careers, and Antonio McDyess in particular. Yeah. But that was 10 years ago. So I think Chandler Parsons is a lost cause. It's a countdown until his contract is up.
You know, I actually agree with you.
And that's
it.
I agree
on that one.
It would be nice, but it's not going to happen. Now, let me ask you this. What would a Pistons team look like with Marc Gasol and Chandler Parsons as opposed to Reggie Jackson and Andre Drummond? Now, what would the big question is, what would the point guard position look like?
It should be your starter, obviously.
If he's healthy.
Guy
hasn't played hardly at all this year.
You're probably going to see a lot more Calderon, which I don't want to see. I could definitely see him signing someone a small. If
you're trying to tank, you might want to see it.
Yeah. If I'm trying to tank, give me Kalen Lucas full blast. Let it rip. I want all of it.
Kalen.
Me too. Not like I like him.
Let's go out and re-sign Peyton Siva.
I like him because I've been watching him since I was 14, but I like him in that respect. I don't think he's going to help our team at all. But
right. No, I see that my concern is, while yes, the point guard position is going to be a hole, which leads me to believe that they will actually make another move for a point guard at the deadline. They do still have some young pieces there. Luke Kennard's name's been thrown around in trade talks. Stanley Johnson's name is thrown around in trade talks. There are some young pieces there that they could potentially move on to bring in a point guard. And I know Dennis Smith Jr. has been the name, but if you trade Drummond, you're not going to be able to get Dennis Smith Jr. likely unless you attach a pick to something. So they may get a mid-level point guard to bring in and do something with, which is possible.
What I would love, because I'll tell you right now, I think if they did that deal, I think the most immediate improvement you'd see is defensively. I think you see an immediate defensive improvement. And
Gasol down low is a big time.
And you get rid of your two guys that are most attributed to this lack of focus issue too. So you're going to see, I think you're going to see an improvement on the court. And what I like is this going to give more opportunity to give Kyrie Thomas more run, which I've been clamoring to see. And he can play point guard.
He can.
So, and if you have point guard Kyrie Thomas, shooting guard Bruce Brown, which, very young backcourt, but that's a really defensive backcourt, plus Paul Gasol holding it down. Marc Gasol holding it down at center. I think there's some serious defensive potential there. And then,
you're going to have young talent on the wings at that point. Yeah. You'll have Kyrie Thomas up top. You'll have Luke Kennard or Bruce Brown over there as well. Yeah. So you're going to have a lot of young players on the wings. It's down low is where you're going to see the age. I don't even know how much Chandler Parsons would factor into this offense. They may have to play him just purely out of necessity. But is he going to be effective? Probably not. But another kind of interesting factor into Marc Gasol coming into Detroit, what kind of effect do you think he has on guys like Henry Ellenson? Similar-ish players, not quite the same, guys who are able to stretch the floor. Does he change Ellison, and does he help Ellenson's career at all?
I don't think so.
No?
I think if you were trying to bring someone to mentor Ellison, it would be a guy who has...
Kevin Love.
Yeah, but at the same time, there's only so many people that fit that mold in the NBA
Kevin
right
Love. That's the one guy for sure I can think of.
Let me put it this way. Will he help Ellenson more than the players currently in this roster? Yes. Will he help Ellenson enough to make him relevant? No.
You don't think he'll even be relevant? You don't think they'd have to play him more out of necessity?
I've kind of lost faith in him, I'll be honest with you.
Fair enough. You're not the only one. I mean, I'm kind of at that point. Granted, the kid's still only 21 years old, but I'm getting close to that point. I just don't see a lot of game from him. And he shows flashes here and there, very rarely, but there's a reason there's a lot of DNP CDs next to his name in the box score. And that kind of tells you, because I think Dwayne Casey is very experimental with the way he runs his lineup, especially with this roster as it's put together. And when I continue to see DNP CD for next to his name, that worries me quite a bit. But do you see a Pistons team with Marc Gasol as opposed to Andre Drummond and Blake Griffin and the young piece that they have, Bruce Brown, Luke Kennard, Kyrie Thomas? Do you see that team as a potential playoff team in the here and now?
I see a slight improvement over this team, maybe, but no, because you'll be too thin at point guard. No, I don't see it as a playoff team.
Too thin at the top?
Yeah.
Fair enough. I actually kind of agree with that. It's going to sound bad, but I kind of hope that Marc Gasol comes here and takes a total leadership role and mails it in on the floor otherwise. Just forgets how to shoot the basketball, but is a great leader for the young talent. And Chandler Parsons never sees a minute. Or no, he sees tons of minutes and continues to build brick houses on the basketball floor. So it'll force the team into a losing situation with a rebuild in the looming in the future, and that's kind of what I want is lottery pick, and it may force the Pistons' hand in the offseason to move Griffin as well, especially if he continues to have the year that he's had. I actually think it's almost a foregone conclusion at this point that Blake Griffin's going to want out at the end of the year. His agent should, without a doubt, be demanding a trade. If I were the agent, I'd be demanding it now at the deadline, but there's no question in my mind that he does it in the offseason because of the fact that, this team is terrible. But I have to play my heart out every night. His agent's got to know
how hard it is going to be to move him, too. I mean, his agent
he does.
That fact.
But he's got to know he's not happy there.
Yeah.
And as his agent, your one job is to make sure your player's happy.
Anyone who's watched a minute of this team, or just over the last couple of weeks, can tell he's not happy there.
Yes. So if your player's not happy, you may be looking at the unemployment line very soon. So he needs to, in my opinion, he's going to be demanding a trade for Blake Griffin in the near future.
Yeah.
So, but that is going to close it out for tonight. For tonight's episode, guys. Thank you again for coming out, and thank you again for listening. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll be back with another episode next week, I believe. Yes.
Yeah.
No. Yes.
If you like it, make sure you subscribe to Detroit Sports Podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts.
iTunes. I think they're on Spotify. I don't know.
Yeah, make sure to give us a download as well.
They're on Spotify, aren't they?
They're on a lot of things. I
do know they're all over the place.
Yeah, I gotta check their exact. They have maybe 7 or 8 things that they're on.
Yeah, and go to @RealFanReport. That's our Twitter. We always post the episode every single week, or you go to @Detroit Podcast. They post it there as well. Every single one of them. Check out all the other shows on there as well. They got a lot of good, broadcast talent there that brings you a potpourri of subjects. I mean, they have a wrestling podcast, Tigers podcast, all sorts of podcasts out there that really, if there's something you like in the Detroit sports realm or just sports realm in general, they've probably got a podcast for you. Yeah. So, but again, guys, thank you again. Thank you again. There we go.
Well, if you're interested in something outside of Detroit sports, again, check us out every Monday night and Thursday night on Twitch at 8 p.m. Eastern. We covered sports in a national perspective, as well as do some movie talk too. So kind of all over the place.
We give a nice potpourri special on the live show as well.
Yeah, that's every Monday and Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern on Twitch.
Remember when I got the time wrong last week?
Yeah, I remember that.
Thank you guys again. Hope you enjoyed it. We hope you guys continue to listen to us, and if there's anything you guys really want us to talk about, don't hesitate to let us know on Twitter as well. So we'll catch you guys next week.
Yep, see you next week.